Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving into the UEFA Conference League final. You've got Chelsea facing Real Betis.
That's right. And we're using an article by Ben Bloom to help us, unpack it all. It focuses right on this match.
Yeah, our mission here is to sort of cut through everything else and give you the core stuff, the key insights, what's historically at stake, the potential outcomes, basically get you fully up to speed.
And just the details. It's Wednesday, May 28th, 2025, Wrocław Stadium in Poland. Kickoff is 8 p.m. British summertime.
Plenty to get into then.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. Where did these teams finish up domestically? The article mentions Chelsea. They just wrapped up fourth in the Premier League. That's pretty huge. Means they've got Champions League football locked in already.
Right. And Real Betis over in La Liga, they finished sixth. So, both secured European spots, just different competitions.
But here's where it gets really interesting, especially looking at Chelsea and the history involved. This final, according to the article, it's potentially massive, like unprecedented.
Yeah, it says Chelsea are actually trying to become the very first European team to win all 5 of UEFA's main men's club competitions. Just think about that for a second.
All 5. That's quite something.
It really is. And they're only in this position because they've already won so much, 2 Champions Leagues, 2 Europa Leagues, 2 Super Cups, and crucially, 2 of the old Cup Winners Cups.
The Cup Winners Cup.
Exactly.
Yep.
So the Conference League is literally the last one they need for this unique historical Grand Slam, sort of.
And it doesn't stop there for potential history, does it?
Yeah.
The article points out if Chelsea do win, it caps off a really historic season for the Premier League, too.
How so?
Well, it would be the first time ever that 5 different English clubs have won a major trophy in the same season.
Oh, wow. Okay, so who are the others again? Let's see. Liverpool won the Premier League, obviously.
Right. Then Crystal Palace got the FA Cup, Newcastle won the EFL Cup, and Spurs picked up the Europa League.
So Chelsea winning this would make it 5 separate winners.
Yeah, that's a pretty remarkable achievement for the league as a whole.
Okay, so those are the stakes. Huge, but how did they actually get here to Poland? The source suggests, pretty different paths through the Conference League.
Yeah, very different. Chelsea's route sounds like, sheer dominance, particularly early on. They won every single one of their 6 league phase games, finished top, no problem.
Comfortably done.
And then the knockouts, pretty smooth sailing too. Beat Copenhagen 3-1, Legia Warsaw 4-2, and then really turned it on against Djurgården in the semis, winning 5-1 overall.
And the article makes a specific point, doesn't it, about who Chelsea used for most of this run?
It does. It mentions they primarily use their younger squad players.
Yeah.
Which, raises a question for the final itself.
Yeah.
We can come back to that.
Definitely. Now, contrast that with Real Betis. Their lead phase was, let's say, more mixed.
Yeah, mixed is a good word. They finished way down in 15th in their group standings. 3 wins, a draw, 2 losses. That meant they had to go through a knockout playoff. Against Ghent, right?
Against Ghent, yeah.
Yeah.
They won that 3-1. But what's interesting is how the article portrays their journey since then. It suggests they've really grown into it.
Gaining momentum.
Exactly. They looked stronger in each knockout round. Big win against Vitoria SC, 6-2 aggregate. Then 3-1 against Jagiellonia. And edged out Fiorentina 4-3 in the semis. Plus, their domestic form picked up too, only lost twice in their last 15 league games. So they seem to be arriving in Wrocław in pretty good shape.
Interesting. So a dominant Chelsea versus an improving, informed Betis.
Right. So let's maybe dig into the analysis a bit more. Starting with Betis. The article seems to credit a lot of their recent improvement to Antony arriving mid-season.
The winger on loan from Man United.
That's the one. Apparently, he's made a real impact, scored in both legs of the semifinal.
Okay, key player then. And the article mentions Abde Ezelzuli, too.
Yep, another attacking threat. Also scored in both semifinal legs. So definitely players Chelsea's defense will need to watch closely.
And who's pulling the strings for them?
That would be Isco. Captain, plays the number 10 role. He's seen as the main creative force behind Manuel Pellegrini's typically attacking setup.
Pellegrini, yeah. Experienced manager.
Very. And Betis also have a few faces familiar to Premier League fans, Adrian in goal, Pablo Fornals, Gio Lo Celso.
Okay.
So they shouldn't be completely fazed by an English team's style.
Okay, but this brings us to maybe the most, mind-blowing statistic in the entire piece. That record for Spanish teams in finals.
Oh, it's absolutely staggering. It really puts Betis' challenge, or maybe Chelsea's challenge, into perspective.
Tell us the stat again. It's worth repeating.
Okay, get this. According to the article, since the start of the 2001-02 season, every single Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League final where a Spanish team faced a non-Spanish team, the Spanish team won.
Every single one.
23 times. 23 finals, 23 wins for the Spanish side against foreign opposition in that period. Well, it's almost unbelievable. It's a huge historical weight.
Does the article give any clues why that might be? I mean, what does that say about Spanish teams, or Betis specifically, in these big moments?
It doesn't really drill down into the why of the stat itself, unfortunately. It presents it more as this incredibly powerful historical trend that Betis now steps into.
Okay.
So it implies there might be something about Spanish tactics, or maybe just their mentality in these one-off high-pressure games against teams from other leagues that's consistently given them an edge. Even though it's Betis' first final, they're part of this, incredibly successful history.
Right. Let's switch focus to Chelsea then, and specifically the manager, Enzo Maresca. The article gives his take on what this final means.
Yeah, he's quoted saying he sees the Conference League as a starting point to build a winner's mentality, and then, using that to win more things and more titles.
Which makes sense, right? Especially for a Chelsea squad with quite a few younger players building that habit of lifting trophies.
Exactly. Winning breeds winning, as they say.
And the article highlights a really interesting personal angle for Maresca here. His history in Seville.
Oh, yeah, playing for Sevilla, Betis' big rivals. And apparently, he even scored a derby winner against Betis back in 2005.
Wow. The source even quotes him saying pretty bluntly, "I know that they don't like me."
Huh. Yeah, that definitely adds a bit of extra, let's say, spice to the touchline dynamic.
And that dynamic is against Pellegrini, whom Maresca actually worked under.
Twice. Pellegrini was his manager at Malaga, and then Maresca was his assistant coach at West Ham. Maresca speaks incredibly highly of him, and the article calls him a reference, a top person, someone who really influenced his coaching path.
So it's got that student versus master feel, but with this added layer of local rivalry from Maresca's past. Fascinating.
Yeah, definitely adds intrigue.
Now, thinking about Maresca's team, the article brings up that key question we touched on earlier. Team selection. Given they used younger players mostly to get here, does he stick or twist for the final?
It's presented as a real tactical point for debate. Does he reward the players who actually played the bulk of the Conference League games, the ones who got them to Wroclaw? Or does he bring in the more established senior names now that silverware is actually on the line?
Tricky decision. Does the article give any hints about who might start?
It mentions a few likely starters. Philip Jorgensen in goal is named. Nicholas Jackson, the striker, is back from suspension, so likely to feature. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall in midfield too. And Cole Palmer, of course, who will be keen to get his first Chelsea trophy.
Palmer's had quite a season.
He really has. But yeah, the final lineup will certainly reveal Maresca's thinking on how to approach this specific challenge from Betis.
And speaking of challenges, for Betis, the article flags up a potentially big one, injuries.
Yeah, quite a list of doubts mentioned. Let's see. Ezequiel Avila, Lo Celso, who we mentioned earlier, Fran Vieites, Yusuf Sabali, Hector Bellerin, Diego Llorente, and Marc Roca.
That's quite a few names. Some important ones in there, too.
It is. It could really test their squad depth and, potentially impact their ability to stick to their game plan if several of those are out or not fully fit. Injuries are always that unknown factor in a final.
Definitely. And just quickly on Pellegrini, another little historical note from the source. If Betis win, he'd make some personal history, too.
Oh, that's that.
He'd apparently be the first Chilean coach to win a major European trophy. And get this, at 71 years old on the day, he'd also be the oldest coach ever to win a major UEFA men's club competition.
Wow, 71. Fair play.
Yeah.
So personal milestones potentially on both touchlines then. And just to cover off the qualification detail quickly, the winner here gets a Europa League spot for next season.
Right, but the article clarifies because Chelsea finished 4th in the Prem, they're already in the Champions League, and that takes priority.
So their potential Europa League spot from winning this,
Yeah.
it doesn't get passed down to another English team or anything like that?
Nope, it just sort of disappears, effectively. Important point of clarification.
Good to know. No knock-on effects there for anyone else.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together for you. The picture the article paints is really one of fascinating contrasts. It's a clash of powerful stories, isn't it?
Absolutely. On one side, you've got Chelsea. They've been, pretty dominant in this specific competition. And they're chasing this absolutely unique piece of history, the full set of UEFA trophies.
Massive motivation.
Huge. Then on the other side, you have Real Betis.
Yeah.
It's their first ever European final. They're coming into it on the back of really strong recent form, led by Pellegrini, this hugely experienced manager.
With key players like Isco and Antony firing.
Exactly. And crucially, they're carrying the weight, or perhaps the support, of that, frankly, astonishing historical record of Spanish clubs in these exact types of finals.
So it really sets up a compelling debate, doesn't it? Can Chelsea's quality, the quality they've shown in the Conference League, plus their unique historical goal, can that overcome Betis's current momentum and that incredible Spanish finals record?
And how much will the personal history between Maresca and Pellegrini play into it?
Mm.
Or Maresca's history with Seville?
And maybe the big practical question, how much will those Betis injury concerns affect them on the night? Can they field their strongest side or close to it?
Yeah, the source lays out all these factors, and it makes it genuinely hard to predict.
Yeah.
Chelsea's pedigree and that specific historical drive are undeniable. But Betis's form, Pellegrini's know-how, and that Spanish record, well, they're powerful arguments the other way.
The injuries really feel like the wild card.
They absolutely do. It feels like a classic final setup, really. Can a team's specific narrative and goal break a larger, dominant historical pattern? It's fascinating.
It really is. Sets the stage perfectly.
So maybe a final thought for you to ponder, based on everything in the source material. In a one-off final like this, what proves stronger? Is it the team chasing a very specific, unprecedented historical milestone, like Chelsea wanting that full set? Or is it the sheer weight of a broader, dominant historical trend, like that unbelievable record Spanish clubs have built up in these finals against non-Spanish teams? Which force holds more sway when the whistle blows?
That's a great question to leave things on. Really captures the essence of this final. Thanks for providing the material for us to get into today, and thanks to you for joining the conversation.